Maybe that's possible, because I always wonder for something like this one, or some of the other cases that we look at where it looks like somebody probably drowned or died, or their body was thrown in the ocean. Let's say that's a possibility. Why would it not? Why would it not always wash up on shore? But maybe there really is a different animal when it's like an island
Exactly.
in a place with strong currents. So that's
You just saw Joran Sloot take his microphone off and threaten to end our interview with him.
They were paid off in the summer for not saying anything, because they found out the story.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Solvable Mysteries Podcast, episode number 25. My name is Juras, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Glenn Highcove. How are you doing, man? How are you feeling?
I'm doing okay. Weather warmed up here in LA. I don't think I've touched the thermostat for like a week. It's crazy. It's been staying right in the 70s in here, so it's been really nice. And today, our case is another crazy one. I think we're doing back to back crazy cases. So this one's all over the place. This one is almost as, I think it might be nuttier than the Casey Anthony one, and maybe not as enraging.
Of course. Today we're going to be talking about the Natalee and Holloway disappearance case. So you can see Natalee here on the image right now. So she was an 18-year-old American woman who mysteriously disappeared, and basically this disappearance made international news. So from what we've spoke about before starting the show, you have actually heard about this case, right, when it was happening, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, I know, because it does feel like it was right in the period where not everything hit my radar for sure. A lot of the other ones, like the Madeleine McCann one, I'd never heard of, but this one for sure. This one I think was real big on specifically U.S. news, but it looks like it was even a big worldwide case. Did you ever hear of it, or were you too young at the
I
time?
feel like I was too young in 2005 to hear about it, but it seems that people here in Lithuania know about this case. I think I found some like Lithuanian articles about this case, because this case does have a touch of some like a European touch a little bit. Like we have some people involved from Europe, per se, like, or of European descent, the Netherlands to be specific, but we will be getting into that a little bit later on. So the quick breakdown of the Natalee Ann Holloway disappearance case is that she essentially was graduating high school, and basically, as I guess it's a custom here there in the US. I think a lot of people that graduate high school, they like go on these trips, I think, or something like that, like a big party trip. And this trip was I guess scheduled to go to Aruba. So it's I'll just quickly show Aruba on the map. So it's like a fairly small Caribbean island. I feel like we are dealing with a lot of Caribbean islands in our recent episodes. We have the Curacao Island right here, where
That's right.
Lean Ann disappeared. So that was an interesting disappearance, and this is another disappearance. So we are currently dealing with a lot of Caribbean island disappearances. So these I guess 18-year-olds that are graduating high school, they fly over to Aruba, essentially to party one last time, I assume, and just have a good old time and just party because Aruba's drinking age, I believe, is 18, if I'm not mistaken. So these and in the US you obviously cannot drink until you're 21. So it's I guess I can see the point why this happens. And also Aruba seems like a beautiful place to have a quick little vacation, right?
Yeah, it seems like it must be like, it's so funny because the US is so big that sometimes like one place's vacation spot that's normal seems so exotic to the other side. So like the Bahamas or someplace like that seems exotic to me because I'm over here in California, but then Hawaii or parts of Mexico are a lot more accessible to me than some other parts of the country, etc. Or Las Vegas is pretty close. So yeah, I mean it's funny because sometimes people go to like Europe instead and go see the cultural sites, but I guess for her particular crowd, it was all about drinking.
I mean, man,
partying.
I'm gonna tell you this right now off the bat. Like, I would love to go to Aruba or even to like United States right now more than I would like to go to like Italy, Rome. I've been there already, and I would like to check out like Memphis, Tennessee, or something like that. So that's
Yeah,
like
no, I get it.
just to see like how life is in the US. Just like I would actually want to just go inside like a 7-Eleven. You know what I'm saying? And buy
That's
like
funny.
a Bud Light and then see how a Bud Light tastes. And is it as bad as everyone makes it out to be? Like I want to actually do these things because it's so interesting. Like it's like a whole another world. But yeah, so essentially she goes to this island with a bunch of her classmates. I believe it was over 100 people. So right off the bat, logistically, if I'm a teacher or a supervisor, that's a nightmare. That's the first thing I got from these cases. That's a complete nightmare. Could you imagine being like a supervisor in charge of like over 100 18-year-olds who really don't have any responsibilities and are only there to party? This logistically just seems like a complete nightmare off the bat.
It's kind of ridiculous because there were only like 7 chaperones, and given, like you said, it seems like everybody knew there was going to be a lot of drinking and partying. I don't know. It's kind of weird that the parents signed off on this. I mean, especially coming from kind of the Bible Belt down there, and Alabama is certainly like a more conservative part of the country, but I think also a part of the country where parents maybe take more pride in instilling their children with values and also kind of controlling their lives. So it is kind of interesting that they didn't seem to have like a lot of safety measures here.
Yeah, so right off the bat, that sounds really weird. So essentially, they arrive in Aruba, and I guess everything goes according to plan. Everyone is partying, having a good time. But then on the day when all of the, I guess, young graduates basically need to report to the airport for their flight back home, she does not attend. There's no sign of Natalee. So essentially I would assume, like, first of all, like, that's weird. How do you only notice that this person is missing at the airport? This is like some Home Alone stuff right here. You know what I mean? This is doesn't
really
seem
weird. Like,
it seems really weird.
You would think that like at least like one chaperone. Given the ratio of like chaperones to students, it's like what, more than 10-1, but that each chaperone should have like a list, right? They should have some kind of roll call or
exactly
right.
I mean, you don't just expect 100 plus 18-year-olds who have been drinking for the last week and partying to just like just go to the airport. Like there's always gonna be like a few people missing that need to like either be checked upon to make sure that they go there, because there was probably kids drinking on the same day that the plane was scheduled to fly home. So anyways, Holloway was scheduled to fly home from the Caribbean island on May 30th of 2005, but she failed to appear for her flight. She was last seen by her classmates outside of Carlson's and Charlie. So let me just quickly, oh no, this is the Marines, this is some other pictures right here. So yeah, so from what I've gathered, this is the last place that Natalee was seen at. So this is the bar, I guess. This picture, I believe, is from the late 2000s, so somewhere around the time when Natalee disappeared. So she was last seen leaving this bar, and she was then seen, I guess, in a car with a local resident, Joran Sloot. So we will talk about him a little bit later on in the case, and with two brothers of, I assume, Aruban descent, Deepak Kalpoe and Satish Kalpoe. So, I probably butchered those names, but definitely pardon me. And yeah, so with these three men living in a car that belonged to Joran Sloot. So we're going to talk a little bit about these characters later on in the podcast. So she was never to be seen again, I guess. So this is why this case was so interesting. Just to give a quick breakdown, it happened in a Caribbean island, and the person has not been seen. No remains have been found or attested to anything, and yeah, this is, I guess, why the case really hit so hard in the media. And I guess that's a breakdown, and I guess we can start going through this case and talk a little bit about her upbringing, her parents, and then move to the script, right?
Yeah. So, yep, she was, as you said, she was born in 1986 in Memphis, Tennessee, to Dave and Elizabeth Holloway. But she was raised in Alabama after her parents divorced. She and her brother lived with her mother, who remarried a man named George Twitty. So that was her stepfather. Just the only reason why I guess that's important is that later on, sometimes you have lawsuits from people named Twitty, and you're like, well, what does Twitty have to do with Holloway? And it's like, oh no, that's her mom. That's her mom with the new.
That's what I got. That's what name. I got. That was a problematic situation when I was.
Yeah, but especially when things got a little more heated between the Twitty family and the Aruban government and the Aruban people. So, yeah, I mean, she was all set to go to University of Alabama on a full scholarship after graduation. So it sounds like she was an excellent student. It's certainly quite an achievement. And she had a very bright future ahead of her. So they have this trip, which I think is prior to actual graduation, sort of an early graduation trip. They had, like I said, they had the 7 chaperones who apparently didn't actually do a lot of monitoring. They were checking in once a day and frankly not really keeping track of what was going on. So that, I think, probably was disappointing for everybody to hear later on. But we'll get a little into that in the recap at the end. So as you mentioned, what happened was her classmates has noticed that she was doing a lot of drinking, and I kind of want to. So Juras, I think I need to give my kind of American point of view on this a little bit, is because we have to wait so long to be legal to drink in this country. I'm sure it's probably still the case. Alcohol becomes kind of like this forbidden fruit, and I know when I finally got access to alcohol, still illegally, still under 21. I definitely drank any chance I could, which wasn't really that often, especially before I moved into the college dorms when I transferred. But it was sort of it was a fun activity. I kind of look back now and I kind of chuckle. I'm like, drinking is not nearly so fun for me now as it was back then. So yeah, her behavior's not that unusual. I mean, even though her classmates are like, oh wow, Natalee's really literally every morning, she's sleeping in late because she was out drinking all night. But I think especially if you're someone that that has a high tolerance, so people have different, I've had friends that have had literally no tolerance. I had a friend one time who 1 beer in and he's silly drunk, and I'm like, yeah, we can't even party, we can't even be at the same party because one beer.
Oh yeah,
I'm not even buzzed yet. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
I always found it weird, but to tell you the truth, we have recently changed our laws as well in Lithuania, so you have to be 20 to drink here. So we had it like at 18, like all other, European countries. So
Yeah.
that's the standard. Some countries have it at 16, but we now have raised it to 20. So we are like Lithuania is the only country in the European Union, I believe, that has an age limit of drinking to 20. But there's this whole thing with like alcoholism here in Lithuania, and the government like trying to fight it. And obviously it's not that much of a problem as it seems, but it's just like what the current political force won the election on, like on this like rhetoric of like reducing alcoholism. And but
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's like sort of a conservative term. But I mean, it's funny because now that I'm older and like not subject to those kind of laws, I actually think it's a good idea because it lowers like the amount of automobile accidents and things like that.
Oh yeah.
But
Because we have a tendency here in Lithuania of like black BMWs crashing into like bus stops, and it's like a really big thing here. Like we have like a BMW crash into a bus stop every week, and this is like no joke. Like I don't know why they always crash into the bus stops, but they just keep crashing into these bus stops. It's actually crazy. There's like this whole
It's like
joke.
a magnet.
Yeah, it's like a magnet, those bus stops. So this
That's
is
like the
a
meme
huge
about.
joke. Yeah.
That's like the meme about off-duty Brazilian cops. There's like all these videos on the internet where off-duty. It's always off-duty. Off-duty Brazilian cops are like shooting criminals in the middle of their crime. Maybe that's like it's like the black BMWs. The bus stops are like the magnets.
I mean,
for it.
I feel like every country has its own like weird
Like
situations. Yeah, weird thing. But yeah, okay, go on.
So I mean, I guess it's kind of I make that note because someone else who didn't know that could be like, well, what the hell, what's going on? Like why would these Americans be getting so drunk in this other country? Like, do they do that in their own country? And the answer is no, they don't. Like they with the I mean, it's pretty hard to get liquor. There's some really strict penalties. In fact, when I was like an underage drinker, if I had been caught like driving with any amount of alcohol in my system,
that's very bad. That's very bad.
They would have taken away my license for like years. So
of course, yeah. So we have like the same thing. Like if you are drunk, then I think they take away your license for like I'm not sure like how drunk. If it's like, I think it's like marginal here in Lithuania. If you like pass a certain margin in the like alco tester, then you're losing like the licenses for at least like 6 months. So yeah, so it's like, especially now the new government, like I feel like it's even worse, and like the fines are crazy. So like if you're drunk and you're driving, you could like receive like 1,000 euros. I feel like that's the case. So
Wow. Yeah. I mean, certainly that's the case. I mean, they keep lowering the blood alcohol limit in different states for drunkenness because I think like they keep tying it to accident rates. But if you're underage, if you're under 21,
oh yeah,
any amount. So even like 0.03, like even like cough syrup amount can be enough to get you in trouble. So you have to be really careful because then you'll lose your license maybe until you're for a few years. So then it really sucks to be a teenager and not have a car, or be a college student without a car. So okay, so that was just sort of the cultural note on that. So I mean, I just can't help but think maybe this, I don't know, maybe this was normal when they did the trips before. They were these chaperones are like, look, we do this every year, we never lost anybody, everybody gets it out of their system. And then like maybe they kind of thought that like if you're hungover a couple times in a row, some people get like hungover off of certain kinds of alcohol, and then they never want to drink that alcohol again. I had a friend that got just trashed off of tequila once, and then every time he could even like taste tequila and something, he wanted to retch. Yeah. So maybe those they thought they were teaching him the hard lesson. So yeah, so last time she's seen is 1:30 a.m. Monday morning, so May 30th, and she's leaving that bar. Carlos and Charlie's, and she's in the car, and it says they're actually there's a Joran van der Sloot guy who I think is a Dutch honor student. So it says a Dutch honor student who is living in Aruba and attending the International School of Aruba. So he's from the Netherlands originally, and then two Surinamese friends, the two brothers. I guess one of them was the actual owner of the car, Deepak Kalpo, like you said, and then.
Oh, so Joran was not the owner of the car, right?
Yeah, it was one of the other guys, one of these two guys.
My bad.
Yeah, it was the owner, and then there's Satish Kalpo, the brother. So yeah, I mean, her luggage and passport were found in her room. When they go to look for her, like you said, everybody went to the airport. She's not there, and pretty much the moment that like kind of the alarms go off and like the authorities start searching the island and making sure she didn't drown. Her parents actually fly out on a private flight, and ironically, I think stay in the same hotel that she did. So they fly out by private jet, and it's interesting because it seems like they had a lot of the facts up front, like they knew who she was last seen with, even supposedly even like the manager at the Holiday Inn knew who she was seen with. I don't really know how he knew, but it could be just the same thing I mentioned about like small places like
small
that.
Places. It seems that everyone,
everyone knows everybody.
Yeah, everyone knows everybody in Aruba, and this Joran van der Sloot, man, he seemed like he was quite a character. We will discuss a little bit of his, I guess, if you can say, business ventures a little bit later on in the podcast. But yeah, he seemed like he was a very interesting character, and he was, I believe, 17 at that point. So for a 17-year-old to be doing all these weird things, I feel like it's a result of being too young with too many freedoms and money. Like, I'm not sure if his parents were staying on Aruba as well with him, but he seemed like someone who just had a little bit too much freedoms. You know what I'm saying? He seems like and we will come to find out that he did some really, really sinister things later on in his life, and he is currently incarcerated for a very long time. So I guess that's just the only way this sort of a lifestyle can end up. So right, so she's last seen with these three people, and I guess what's really interesting about this case is that both the brothers and Joran start, I guess, throwing each other under the bus a little bit, right? So they're giving like these interesting flip-floppy like testimonies of what actually happened. So, and the whole thing with like them changing up the story every time, it was really, really weird. And to me, the thing was so weird that the police couldn't really like have a more in-depth, I guess, investigation into these characters, I guess, just because there was no like evidence, right? They couldn't really find anything on these guys.
Yeah, it was like they were out of their league a little bit, almost like the what was it, the Madeleine McCann case?
Yeah.
And where it's like just this doesn't usually happen, and they don't usually have
it seemed like the local investigative forces, they could not really make a good enough job, because like in places like Aruba, I assume the police force, the only problems they have is drunk tourists. They don't really have like missing person cases that they have to deal with. So it was like,
right,
what are we going to do now? Like, wait, should we like how do we do this,
Yeah, or like murders and things like that, or it's just it's all just
drunk
stuff
tourists.
that's or domestic disputes where it's like husband and wife and someone beats the other one to death or something. But not like kind of weird high profile stuff like this, and like, so then so you get the original story was that the van der Sloot guy says, oh well, we hung out, whatever that means, and there's sort of some allegations later about whether they were doing any drug use or something, which I don't know whether to believe any of that, but he says that she was so drunk that she fell down when she exited the car, and that she refuses help. And he said as they were driving away, they saw a dark man in a black shirt similar to those wearing security guards coming out of the hotel. But then there's a whole dispute about whether she had ever appeared on camera at the hotel, or even went through the lobby, or even needed to go through the lobby to get to her room. So it's possible, if she went back to her room, it's technically possible that she could have potentially, like, I don't know, gone in through the deck or something, the balcony. I don't know. Maybe it was on the ground floor, but then...
So just a quick interruption.
Yeah.
This guy that we are seeing on the image right now, he was actually detained because he, Vandersloot, I guess, alleged that this guy was the dark man who approached Natalee when they dropped her off. So he was arrested, right? I have this on the script. So this guy, man, I can't really tell you his name right now, but like, he was arrested and he was released shortly after because they just couldn't link him with that situation at all.
Yeah, especially if that Vandersloot guy says it. Turns out he says a whole lot of things he can't ever back up. So yeah. Then there was even dispute whether the cameras were even working at the hotel, and it was, so once again, it's like you can't depend on that. And then like they kind of, I guess anybody thinks like if something happened to her, just like the cruise case we did, where it's like, okay, if something happened, where's the body? So they start looking all over the place. The hundreds of volunteers from Aruba, and the government starts doing a bunch of stuff, and
also the Netherlands Marines as well. That's what I've read, that the Marines
50 Dutch Marines, and then the banks even put up money. So once again, like it's funny because I think I said this in another show that I think I was critical of. I think it was the McCann case, where I was like, it's not good press for you when tourists get hurt. Certainly, it seems to me that Aruba really went out of its way to make up for something happening to a visitor. So it seems like right away they're putting up money and trying to help, and really not like the Curacao thing where it felt like it was a little half-assed. This thing feels like they took it really seriously right away and really wanted to help.
The only time I heard of Aruba, to be honest with you, is about like Americans going there to a vacation. That's the only thing I've heard about Aruba. I've heard about Curacao before because it has like a little bit more of a historic background, I guess, and like Curacao is more of a port from back in the day, but like Aruba seems like it's just straight up tourism all the way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, me too. I think it's the only, before this case, I had some kind of vague notion of, like I said, it just being a big vacation place for North Americans, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, so they're looking around, and then like as they're sort of, they keep on like detaining people and questioning them, and it seems like they do a pretty good effort to question them, but they just keep on getting like sort of weird, ever-changing stories, and they never really have any physical evidence to link them. Like at one point, they thought there was blood in the car, so they're like, oh, good, we got, a clue. Finally, we can use that as leverage, and they tested it, and it's not blood. So,
Wait,
that's.
What was it then? Because
I think it's just maybe ketchup or something. It was just something else. It was just something. Like they had a dirty car. It's three like high school age guys. Of course, the car is going to be filthy. Yeah. So like everyone's like eating takeout food and stuff in it. So it wasn't blood, and so they had no real physical evidence. And then meanwhile, the government here, and once again, this is a good example of just like the McCann case.
Yeah.
Like it ends up being really expensive. Like it's not like there were a lot of people at work, both in Aruba and then the U.S. government, and then them having to work together. And then like at one point they're like later on in the case they're like flying F-16s over the island.
Yeah. That's something I was going to mention. I actually forgot.
Expensive.
That was so crazy to me. Like F-16s with like heat sensing radars. Also, they used satellite technology as well.
Yeah, they're matching like surveillance photos to other surveillance photos, and so there's this whole search, and like I said,
but that's a good thing, right?
Yeah,
That's definitely a good thing.
It is. It's just it's a shame because it feels like, I guess, as I'll get into in the end, like, maybe a little bit of caution from everybody, and not blaming her, because I mean, sounds like she was drunk and semi incapacitated, so really people should have been looking out for her. But
Right.
like because something happens or someone does something awful, now they're spending like literally tens and maybe at the end of this probably more than $100 million worth of effort for this one person, and that's expensive. That's a lot of
That's
effort, and yet we still don't have the person. So
we have nothing.
yes,
We have
we
absolutely nothing. In some of these
yeah.
other cases, at least you have like links, and you could sort of like theorize, like at least from some sort of evidence, like even like the Madeleine McCann case, like you can sort of go back on those like dogs that actually sniffed blood, somewhere around like the
Oh
McCann
yeah, the
family's
crunk.
car,
Yeah.
the sofa. But in this case, we literally have nothing, and all of our theories, I guess, can only be based on situational analysis. We can't have any sort of concrete evidence leading, like we can't base our theories on anything concrete. It's all situational, and I think that's really why this case is so popular, is the fact that the theories can range from absolutely everything.
Yeah, that was so like I remember when this case was going on, and I would hear about it, and there would be like these sort of daily or weekly updates. Maybe this really was like, in a way, kind of the American version of the McCann case, because you had somebody that was, unlike John Bonet, which was just tragic, and it was more like a whodunit. Like we
Yeah,
didn't have a body, just like McCann. We don't know where she is, and
exactly.
it was generating the kind of publicity, just like the McCann thing, where literally the British papers
Hmm.
would use the story to boost their readership. I think we find out later, as the case progresses, it really becomes like a hot topic where everyone's watching it, and all these shows and news shows are keep like bumping it,
A
like
moneymaker
using
for
as,
the news
yeah,
stations.
clickbait, right? So yeah, so I kept on thinking her body would wash up somewhere,
Hmm.
because that's the way the news was talking about it. But yeah, it doesn't happen. So like, yeah, as we said before, like the statements between this Vandersloot guy and the Calpo brothers, um, keep on getting them arrested, and they keep on getting like arrested and rearrested and brought in. And then the two former security guards that were known for cruising hotels to pick up women at one point were brought in.
Nick,
But
John, and Abram
yeah,
Jones.
yeah, these guys, yeah. So but then they don't never get charged for anything. I mean, it turns out they were just probably just opportunist daters, let's say.
Exactly, and
Yeah,
probably, I sort of get the sense that Joran Vandersloot knew about these guys, and knew that they were doing this thing. So it was almost like a sure thing to say, because you sort of deflect all of the suspicion off yourself.
yeah.
But then as you've mentioned, it comes back around to the brothers and Joran Vandersloot after a while, because there's just no other leads, right?
Yeah, I mean, so that was interesting. That's a good point, because apparently the cops were all over them, the three guys, pretty early, and now I think one of the investigators kind of has the criticism that, because of the pressure from the family, they they didn't do the kind of surveillance they
Hmm.
would have wanted to do to try to get them to implicate themselves. So they were kind of forced to bring them in and give them the hard interrogation earlier, rather than maybe wait for them to mess up and
But but
find. Yeah.
but have you heard about like Joran Vandersloot actually implicating himself on like multiple occasions
Yeah. Yeah,
after
I
the
mean,
fact? This was insane to me. Like,
it's
what is this?
this thing's so crazy. I mean, it sometimes it's like, wow, there are actually other people out there like Casey Anthony that just do
Oh,
like
that
these,
yeah,
yeah,
like
there's lies and
Vanders
deceit and
Joran Vandersloot is like a male version of Casey Anthony.
yeah, like with the accompanying maybe increased level of violence or
Oh yeah.
homicide, because yeah, I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Oh yeah. Like this
it, it,
guy is like Casey Anthony on steroids.
it makes you wonder if he was already. That's what I'm not clear on, because the cops and everybody seemed to know his name pretty early. Makes you wonder if he was notorious already before,
Hmm.
all this happened. Had he had some, I don't know, maybe had he been known for trying to pick up drunk girls, or just getting into trouble
I feel
a
like it could
lot.
have been a situation, his father was like a lawyer, an attorney, so, and we have like this situation here in Lithuania. When I was growing up, I knew a bunch of these like people who were like, sons of like lawyers, and like they sort of like were doing really crazy stuff in school, and stuff like that, because they just felt like they could get away with anything. And like, yeah, so there were like some crazy situations where I was like, like, I would never do this. Like, this is, like, you're gonna get like, it's gonna end bad for you. But like, I guess when your like father is like a fairly powerful like lawyer or like an attorney, it sort of gives you like an extra boost of confidence that you're gonna get away with anything. So it could be the case that Joran was feeling like this, especially when he was a kid, looking through his like old pictures. Like, we have some really weird pictures. Like, I'm not sure if I can find it, but oh yeah, like this picture right here. This picture right here is like I think says a lot. I mean, this could just be a party, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
He has like for all the listeners, he has a leash on a female's like neck, and
Neck.
he's
Yeah.
like holding her like she was like a dog or something. So yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a douche kind of.
Yeah,
I
I
don't like
also
his,
get the sense that he was a douche, yeah, as well.
which I guess isn't that unusual for a lot of 17-year-old boys. So he's not
Oh yeah.
that unique in that. But
He
yeah, I
also
mean
has a G Unit T-shirt. Like, I just have to mention this. So G Unit. That's
which
like
is
50 Cent and all of the other, like, yeah.
yeah, he's a little bit of a poser. So yeah,
The
he's
chain,
over there.
the silver chain, it looks really small, but it's still a chain.
It's just like, yeah, it's just bad news. So I mean, poor Natalee. So he, that. So on top of that, then the investigators keep kind of like, there's like a lot of rumors back and forth. I think that the investigators themselves are kind of confused. Like, they didn't have good PR. Like, nowadays, like, and I guess I think we've seen this from other police departments in the U.S. too. So it's not like they're that unusual. I mean, we even had criticism for the Boulder Police Department with John Bonet case. I mean, they didn't really do a super bang up job on their murder investigation either. But yeah, they keep just a lot of back and forth. I think all this attention from the U.S. and them not wanting to kill the tourism cash cow, and also feeling bad, honestly. I mean, about something happening to a visitor. I think
I also got the sense that
nervous.
it was not only because of the tourism. They actually, at least from what I've gathered, they actually felt bad about this whole situation. Maybe because it has never happened before in Aruba, or at least on this scale where it's being reported so heavily. So yeah, maybe they actually, it was. I don't think it was all about the money. I think people were actually in some sort of a distress in Aruba during.
Yeah, they
the
might have been a little bit mortified, and then later on, even like this like disc jockey, this DJ, radio DJ, I guess, gets arrested, and once again, I think it's because like the other three guys threw him under the bus and said, "Oh, he did it," and then like that turns out to be a false lead too. There's like this case was kind of hard to research because I think I had one set of memories about it, but then when I was reading all the materials on it, it's just all over the place. Like it's just it's almost it almost makes the Casey Anthony case look straightforward, like in terms of just all the weirdness and strange twists and turns, and they never seem to like at one point they had like a different set of stories where it said, oh well, we didn't harm her, but we left her at the beach, and it just the Vandersloot guy though I think is probably the worst in all of this, where he keeps on changing his stories, and then I think it was later on in the investigation he even faked a phone call to himself, so like he faked being on a phone call with his father, but then he did his voice as his father. The guy's just like a big jerk. So I don't know. What are your thoughts so far with all this kind of back and forth?
Right. So this back and forth goes on for a while, but like from what I'm gathering, essentially all the three main suspects, Joran van der Sloot and the two brothers that we are, that we can see on the image right now, they essentially all agree, even though all of their stories are all over the place, they all agree that, I guess, Natalee was dropped off at the beach, right? If I'm not mistaken. That the end story, I think it was that she was dropped at the beach, right? So I guess the brothers pretty much stated that they left, and they left Joran with Natalee, and I guess Joran said that the brothers stayed with Natalee. So I guess that's how it all ended. And I guess essentially just because there was no proof, no concrete evidence that these guys were involved in any way besides being last seen with Natalee, I guess the cases is dropped, and the charges were dropped as well, right? So the family members of Natalee, they actually continued to search for Natalee for a very long time. From what I've gathered a little bit, Natalee's mother, she was really determined to find Natalee, and she went on like multiple news stations, and it was almost like the Madeleine McCann parents. They really tried to find out what happened. The only difference between these cases is that the McCann family are actual suspects in that case, and obviously Natalee's parents had nothing to do with this case. So yeah.
It's an excellent comparison though, because at least in the same way that things went sour between the Portuguese government and the McCann family, the same thing happened here, where I guess Natalee Holloway's mom and stepfather, well, her mom especially, I guess, started really venting about the whole thing, and I think she started saying not so nice things about Aruba and the people, and that massively backfired on her. Like there was a big protest against her, and I think that was probably justified, the protesting. I mean, she apologized later and said she was frustrated,
right. I just wanted to mention here that we have this fact mentioned as well, that there were like a lot of money I guess set to either found her dead or alive. So at that point people were sort of starting to lean towards that they're looking for a dead person, not necessarily a missing person. So
I mean, and those F-16s, those were the Dutch F-16. That was like I think on behalf of Aruba, those were Dutch F-16s being flown. Those are not cheap to fly.
That's a lot
just
of money.
The gas alone, and then the pilot time and all that.
That's like a small business for one flight.
Yeah, exactly. It's so they really, I think, bent over backwards, and at the end of the day, it kind of makes me wonder, because just to put a pause for a second, I feel like when someone drowns here on the coast of California, or I had a friend who drowned a long time ago in Mexico, and the bodies wash up on shore, and I don't know if it's because maybe it's different when it's a Caribbean island like that, where maybe the current could possibly not always, what I mean, like there's not a big continent to wash up against, so maybe the current can carry it back off into the Gulf or off into the Caribbean. Maybe that's possible, because I always wonder for something like this one, or some of the other cases that we look at where it looks like somebody probably drowned or died, or their body was thrown in the ocean. Let's say that's a possibility. Why would it not always wash up on shore? But maybe there really is a different animal when it's like an island, in a place with strong currents. So
it could have washed over anywhere, like in the Gulf of Venezuela. It could have washed down Curacao. It could have washed down in Jamaica, for all places, so
somewhere else. And then I always wonder, I mean, I always think of warm water as having more sharks, so maybe there's just more animals eating things, crabs and things like that. So maybe that's why. Maybe just a body has no chance if it's not luckily washed up. So I mean, they all gave their weird excuses and things and throw themselves under the bus. And then there were even like searches of like properties where they drained ponds and used cadaver dogs and searched
Yeah.
landfills. And they never found anything. They had at one point they had a lead where there was like some duct tape that had some blonde hair on it, and they're like, "Oh, here it is. Well, we found it." And then
Oh
they
yeah.
tested the hair. It
Yeah.
wasn't hers. So it was
But like,
just
right. So this goes on for like a while, but
yeah,
where
back and forth.
but the real interesting, I guess, parts come, like, I guess, a little bit after the whole incident happened. So, in the months following his release, like, I'm just gonna read this real quickly. Vander Sloot gave several interviews that explained his version of events. So this is where things are gonna get really interesting. So the most notable interview that he gave was for Fox News of all places. Like, that was weird when I was researching, but whatever. So over 3 nights in March 2006, I guess, he was giving those interviews. So during the interview, Vander Sloot indicated that Holloway wanted to have sex with him, but he did not because he did not have a condom. So right off the bat, I don't think this guy cares. So that's just like right off the bat. So
That
he,
doesn't
yeah,
that doesn't sound. I mean, I'm sorry to stereotype all men, but I think for 90% of men,
I mean, come on, man.
that doesn't.
That's not how these situations go.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Usually it's the opposite. Yeah. So,
yeah, like, it's never like on this end, but okay, whatever. So he stated that Holloway wanted them to stay on the beach, but that he had to go to school in the morning. So according to Vandersloot, he was picked up by Satish Kalpoe at about, one of the brothers, at about 3 a.m. and left Holloway sitting on the beach. So this was his first, I guess, statement. And in August 2005, David Koch, like, that's a funny name, stated that his client had gone to sleep and had not returned to drive Vandersloot home. Oh, so I guess this is the lawyer for one of the brothers. So he stated that Vandersloot was lying, that there was, there was he one of the brothers, he did not come and pick up Vandersloot. So this theory, falls apart immediately, and then Vandersloot stated that he was somewhat ashamed to have left a young woman alone on the beach, albeit by her own request, and related that he was not truthful at first because he was convinced that Holloway would soon turn up. So, this was his first statement, and like, I already see two holes in the statement that, just doesn't seem like, that's what actually happened. Right.
yeah. I just it doesn't even. He doesn't look like that kind of person. He doesn't. He described like some other human being that doesn't resemble
Yeah,
him at all in
that's
terms
not
of like
him.
the behavior. His face doesn't even look like someone that would do that. Yeah, so that seemed like a total lie. And then
Also,
they-
like,
yep.
just another thing we have to mention here is, like, in January 2006, the FBI and the Aruban authorities interviewed, several of Holloway's classmates back in Alabama on January 17th, and Aruban police searches for Holloway body in the so we already covered this part. So yeah, so essentially, classmates of Holloway were also questioned, but nothing came about from that. I guess. That part of the investigation, because no one really knew where she was.
Yeah, and that'll actually be one of my criticisms at the end of this. But yeah, and even like the investigator, with the head investigator, who I think at some point left the case, and I think retired or left the force. He was like, wow, like at this point, just Aruba by itself had spent $3 million on the investigation, which was 40% of their whole budget, and he thought that probably she had died of alcohol poisoning or drug intoxication or something like that, a drug overdose. And he had I guess there was some kind of pointing at some kind of drug possession. I can't imagine. I'm not really sure what kind of drugs, if they mean cocaine because it is so close to, Colombia and the rest of South America, or
Yeah.
whether they mean like MDMA or something like that. It's hard to kind of tell what drugs they mean exactly. I mean, I'm assuming it was something that was like a a stimulant. But yeah, I mean it's a little weird. I guess I'm assuming they meant like maybe those guys had coke on them.
Yeah, but like Joran Sloot, he actually has a Wikipedia page, so you're doing something right if we have Wikipedia pages.
There's
So
something right or something super wrong.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
So from what we can see, like the Wikipedia page is really, really lengthy just because of, oh my God, like, whoa. This is almost like Stalin's Wikipedia or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. So I mean, just to dive in on his actions, kind of in the what I'll call the late period of the investigation, and then some of the other stuff he did. So yeah, I mean, he'd done a lot of back and forth and flip flopping, and kind of just made himself look like a creep. But somehow there was never really anything they could ever pin on him, and then. There were even like people that had been questioned and arrested in Europe, supposedly related to the case, but they never found anything. He co-wrote a book, and then his
Oh my
house and
God.
yard gets searched, and then so here's just one thing to call out is it wasn't just him. It was a lot of people, and I think this is one of the things that was a little bit disgusting about the case because it really became. I wouldn't say just it wasn't just tabloid fare, and kind of the age of new media, and where. I think like this is still before the golden age of like YouTube and social media. This is almost it's basically pre-social media.
Yeah.
This is where I think television reached its peak during this period where television had the power of the internet. Like the internet could not provide the kind of entertainment and video content that television have.
Of course, yeah.
But the internet had all the power to promote it in a way that I guess television could still control, and so you had the Oprahs and the all these other kind of big shows, and like you said, the cable networks like Fox News and CNN, that everybody had a motive to interview this guy, and even books were still selling pretty well. So like he's writing a book, other people are writing books, everyone's making $1.
A whole bunch of books here.
Like everyone's making so you've got this like almost like I said the peak television and peak books. Probably this is like because then you've got Amazon and Barnes and Noble both have online.
It's a New York best-selling book, by the way. So whoa.
So everyone is making $1 off of poor Natalee's disappearance and her poor mom and dad and stepdad, their family is just like, where's our kid, and then I think because of this. Here's my point is that because of this, a lot of people, including this Joran guy, have a reason to lie because every time they lie,
they make money.
like they make more money, and they make someone else more money, and it's almost like people are kind of probably. I'm not saying any particular show did this, but it feels like maybe those shows were encouraging them to lie based on some of the things that came up in the research where. It seems like they kind of knew that the person was making a false statement, and they're like, well, who cares? Because we're going to sell, another $10 million worth of books or commercial time or whatever it is. So it's almost sickening. It's almost too much to recount in terms of all the back and forth. But one of the things that I think that where he this is where he finally messes up and, his money train ends is at one point he reaches out to the Twitties, so Natalee's mother and stepfather, reaches out to the legal representative, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to come clean, or I'm going to help you now." After all that, this is in 2010. This is like almost exactly 5 years later.
Yeah.
He was like, guess what? I'll help you. If you guys give me $25,000 now for a total of $250,000.
Oh my God! He probably came at them like an accountant.
Yeah, like, and they even sent him. This is actually like an international crime because it's a form of extortion, basically.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, let's we'll do it. So they go and they wire him, $15K, and this was after they'd given him $10,000 in cash that was videotaped by undercover investigators, and that, and then the info he gave was just crap. It wasn't real. It was the house that he said her was in was not even built at the time that she disappeared. So it was just a complete lie. And he was charged in U.S. District Court of Northern Alabama with extortion and wire fraud, and that's bad news for him. That's you don't want to cross any, like I said, you don't want to cross any state lines with crime with the U.S. because that gets the feds involved, and you don't want the feds in your case. So
Exactly.
Yeah. So he gets that.
And from what I've gathered, he leads them to like a vacant apartment, right? That no one was living at.
Yeah, and then they go and they raid some of the homes that I guess are associated with his family in the Netherlands, and and one of them was even belonged to one of the reporters that had I guess interviewed him in one of his lies.
Right.
So they at one point I think they have like a whole Interpol warrant on him, but before any of that can get acted on, you were just showing the pictures.
Oh yeah.
So this guy finally, unfortunately, ends up hurting.
Right. So
we think it's probably somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. So like on but this was crazy. Like on the 30th of May 2010. So on the 5th anniversary of Holloway's disappearance, Stephanie Tatiana Flores Ramirez, who was 21 years of age, this woman right here, she actually died at the Hotel Tech in Miraflores district of Lima, Peru. So this is the hotel that she died at. And on June 2nd, a hotel employee found her beaten body in a room 309, which had been registered in Sloot's name. So how crazy is this that exactly 5 years after the fact, Sloot is implicated in another murder, or like another, like this is a murder. The Natalee case is a disappearance, but like it's still, how crazy is the fact that he's implicated once again, but this time Sloot had departed from the hotel without returning the room key and left the television running. A tennis racket identified by the coroner as a possible homicide weapon was recovered from the room. A hotel guest and a employee came forward to say they saw Sloot and the victim entering the hotel room together, and the police obtained video of the two playing cards at the same table the night before at the Atlantic City Casino in Lima. Sloot had entered Peru via Colombia on 14th of May 2010, so like 15 days before this woman was killed, and to basically attend a Latin American poker tour. So like this guy seemed like he was quite a traveler, to say the least, but he probably met up with Stephanie Tatiana Flores Ramirez, and things probably got out of hand, and it was alleged that he killed her with that tennis racket because she had entered his laptop and found information regarding the Natalee case or something like that. So and then he got really angry and then killed her with a tennis racket. So that's the official story, and after that he pretty much got locked up. He got locked up for 28 years.
Yeah, I mean, he messed up this time because, maybe he got away with it when whatever happened to Natalee, when it was some visitor, and I mean, I don't, he's seemingly, I don't know, like got away with it, whatever happened, but this time it was the daughter of a prominent politician in their own home country, and he's some big business owner, and you weren't going to get away this time, buddy. So
Flores was actually a business student, who was less than a year from graduation in the University of Lima. She was the daughter of Ricardo Flores, a former president of the Peruvian Automobile Club and a winner of the Caminos del Inca rally in 91, a prominent businessman and entertainment organizer. He ran for vice president in 2001 and for president 5 years later, on like fringe tickets, whatever that means. So yeah, like you killed the daughter of someone who ran for president and vice president of, like, from what I've gathered, Peru. So yeah, like this is, like your rich parents cannot help you. And by the way, his father died on the same year. Joran's father died in 2010. So I'm not, So yeah, that was also an event, I guess.
Yeah, a weird bunch of coincidences. Yeah, I mean, makes you wonder what's going on for him now in prison. Whether
he's in Peru, so he's in Peru in prison. So it can't be nice. Like, from what I've heard, those South American prisons are like horrible.
Doesn't seem like it would be fun. Yeah, it seems like it would be
not like a Norwegian prison or anything like that.
Yeah, like a Swedish prison.
Yeah, it's like it's
not a country club prison.
No.
So yeah, it's more like I mean, I know sometimes I think it's in sometimes some of those prisons down in South America, when they have riots, like hundreds of people get killed during like reprisals. Like it's just like people slaughtering each other, and yeah, it doesn't seem like it'd be great. So, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, this guy seems like he had a lot of opportunity, but he just messed it up, and sadly, what happened. So, like at this point, I'm not quite sure exactly why. Maybe just for closure, or maybe there's insurance reasons or other legal reasons to do this. But her natural father, Natalee's natural father, filed a petition with the Alabama courts to have his daughter legally dead, and the mom fought it. I'm not really sure why. I mean,
I think it's because she still thinks that she's alive. At least that's what I've gathered from like the footage that she did for like news outlets, that she's like stating that she keeps coming back to Aruba to try to find Natalee. Right.
Yeah, and once again, it's like, I mean, as much as you feel really bad for the parent because they want to keep hope alive, but once again, just like the other case, the Amy Lynn Bradley case.
Yeah, Amy Lynn Bradley, yes.
Yeah, where it's like what? It's such a small place. I mean, God, if anybody knew that she was being held as like a prisoner, a slave or something somewhere, they would tell you. Like
that information would have came out one way or another. Right.
They want this stink off of them. They don't need this. They don't want this hit to their reputation. So, yeah, I mean, and then and look, it wasn't even like one of their own citizens. It was this visitor guy, probably. From what we can tell, it looks like it's this visitor guy came.
But the thing is, Aruba sort of belongs to the Kingdom of Netherlands, so I feel like they're somehow like connected. Like I don't know like the political structure of Aruba. So don't quote me on this thing, but like I'm not certain how like independent Aruba is and what's the link with the Netherlands, but it seems like it has a really close connection, and yeah.
Like a colonial connection, yeah. I mean, just like Belize with Britain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah. I mean, sadly, I mean, there's a lot of other back and forth about the TV shows and things like that. But I think we've covered it pretty well. I mean,
yeah.
Did you want to get into our reactions about?
Yeah, sure. But like
think about it?
Before, like I guess we start to and wrap this up. I think we could go through like the theories of what we actually think happened.
Yeah.
So for me personally, like I'm leaning towards that Joran had definitely something to do with Natalee's disappearance. I mean, that's just what I'm leaning toward, because like he already proved that he is able to kill people. He had some sort of I didn't do too much research into this part, that he had like some sort of a Thailand prostitution ring connection, something like that, where he was like posing as a model agency from Europe, and he would go to Thailand and recruit all of these Thai women and sell them for like 10,000 euros, for like a person, so or something like that. Like I didn't really do that much of an in-depth research, so he was a really shady guy, and my my line of thinking is that he had something to do with the disappearance of Natalee, and the brothers, they also potentially had something to do with it. And I feel like they definitely know what happened, but they're not giving us this information. So that's my line of thinking, because there's no any other concrete leads, and just because of how shady this guy is. Even like our last episode, like Casey Anthony, you sort of know that Casey Anthony had something to do with that, Kaylee's disappearance. Same here, like you sort of know that this guy had something to do with it, because like how else could you explain this?
Yeah, I mean, when someone keeps changing their story over and over again, and
oh my god,
and they keep on ending up being bad news, and then I mean, so my own take on it is, I think either maybe he raped and killed her, or maybe she passed out and he raped her, and something happened, maybe she died accidentally, maybe, but whatever it is, I think somehow he disposed of her body. Maybe he did, like to our earlier question, maybe people that live there do know that, like, hey, guess what? If you chuck something in the water there, like the current is definitely going to go carry it somewhere else, and like it won't be found again. Maybe
common
I don't know.
sense
Maybe it's just like maybe drowning people go missing there too all the time. That just it just happens. Interesting to find that. But yes, that's my thought. The two guys that are with him, I mean, it doesn't seem like they have had the degree of legal entanglement and issues that he has, though. Maybe it's they don't. So that's another one of those, like from the last episode, where there's smoke, there's fire. So it doesn't, like I said, it seems like they had some involvement, but it's hard to understand, like, if they just were there and they kind of, they left him alone with her, or what exactly, then came back and he's like, okay, well, she's gone, so take me home, or I don't know. It's weird. So it's bewildering, but the fact that the 5 years later he ends up just brutally killing somebody that for no real good reason. I mean, not that there's ever a good reason to kill somebody, but it wasn't like it was in self-defense or something. I mean, it was somebody apparently is having some kind of romantic episode with, which she seems to be good at landing, and then this person is brutally beat to death and their body stuffed. There's an interesting thing. I guess when he was in Peru, he didn't know his little body hiding tricks. Maybe so. Maybe when he's outside of his own territory, he doesn't know how to conceal. Though funny enough, they were saying, not really funny, but strangely enough, they said it actually took them 3 days for some reason to find the body, even though it was just stuffed in the room, like under the bed or something.
Maybe no one was searching,
Yeah, nobody. I mean, even the room cleanup people are like, I don't know. Yeah, they didn't check for some reason. So, I mean, it's the things that jump out to me about this case, other than like the drink, the drinking's kind of normal. I think that it's important to call out that we're not blaming her for what happened to her. I mean, people
definitely. People get drunk all the time. Like, I drink a lot sometimes. Like it's just a thing you do.
And then a beginning drinker who doesn't know their limit, or I would go farther to say that maybe she did know her limit, but I don't think she was in her right mind. I don't think any woman that cares for her own safety, that was like conscious and in her right mind, would get in a car with 3 guys she barely knows and think that, just given that like there's nothing about her past, let's say, there's nothing that alludes to like, she liked to do this all the time or party with a bunch of guys, or it's like some kind of.
The parents said that
straight A student, right?
She was a straight A student, and that she was really doing really good in school. So
it doesn't sound like normal behavior for her.
Maybe some drugs were involved. Maybe Joran van der Sloot gave her something. Who knows?
That's true, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Like roofies, Rohypnol, something like that. Yeah, maybe so. But so here's the part that I actually am pretty harsh on is chaperones.
Oh yeah.
Someone should have always been there, on even as much as it kind of sucks to have like mommy or the teacher or whatever there. The chaperone should have been there, but I'll go even further and say, like, so for sure they deserve a much of the criticism, but I would say her own friends, and this is something that I don't. So I'd like to point out when I was in college. So this was like at UCLA in '97 and '98. I remember some of my freshman friends, who were young women, who were my neighbors, said that like as freshmen, this is in the late '90s, they were all getting sat in like big lecture halls as part of freshman orientation, and being really given like a very serious talk about watching out for things like date rape and alcohol, and getting into situations where, like situations that are like this. And I think this is, once again, this isn't to shame Natalee. It's more to shame her friends and classmates that by no means should they have ever let her get in a car, especially with her being so drunk.
Random dudes, right?
Yeah, with 3 random dudes that they don't know, and I mean, even if they were going to kill her, I mean, they could have easily. I think sexual assault seemed like a very strong possibility. You can tell that she's not in her right mind. Someone else, 2 or 3 people, should have gotten that car with her at least. You know what I mean? Like if she was like, "Oh no, I'm getting this car."
That's probably not enough space to fit these people. I think they should have just not get into the car in the first place.
Yeah. But or
I think
make
she.
it so that,
But like the thing is, Natalee. I think from what my research was, that Natalee sort of invited herself into the car, into the whole situation. So that's what I've heard. So maybe that was not the case, but like maybe someone from her like friend circle should have like sort of detained her from doing that, and like nah.
Yeah. I mean, because I've seen that even in like work situations too, where let's say somebody at work was drunk and doing something that wasn't characteristic for them, and like one of the other co-workers, I won't say what gender, but like they were both from the same gender, the other co-workers like, hey, like I'm gonna step in right now and this isn't happening, like, because I know for sure tomorrow everyone's gonna regret it, so at the risk of being like judged harshly or looked down on, not too bad, like I'm gonna break up this party so that, and this wasn't like this wasn't where anybody was going to get hurt, other than maybe their job and like their feelings were going to get hurt. But this was, this is a bigger situation where, like this 3 men and one girl having a party together doesn't, unless they really knew each other, you know what I mean?
It's like a bad reputation the next morning, definitely.
Bad,
so, yeah. So I mean,
and then there's also like this parade of weasels involved in this case, like the Vandersloot guy, the 2 brothers, the brothers that were with him, and then all these like reporters and book authors and talk show hosts and people that are kind of like getting this liar to lie some more so they can make more money off of it.
That's definitely disturbing to think about that. At the end of the day, it was all about money in this case.
Yeah, at the risk and not really helping her cause of just confusing things. And then finally Vandersloot himself, who's
a complete douchebag and has proven to be able to kill people, right? So I think he's set to sit in jail for another 18 years. So he's not coming out anytime soon if he manages to stay alive in that Peruvian prison. So I guess this. I feel like we covered this case, at least everything that we wanted to mention here. Any sort of final thoughts on this episode, and I guess before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, just I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah, I mean, just Natalee, if you're out there, please call your parents. But I really do feel bad for her, because it does seem like she's gone, and it's just, and once again, like really bewildering, just like the Madeleine McCann case, like what the heck happened to this person? And also, we've been seeing a lot more subscribers, and we're really happy about that. Also your comments as well. So please hit the subscribe button if you have not already. We're looking forward to bringing you more and more cases.
Yep, that's a perfect ending note right there. And yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, leave a like, leave a comment down below if you have some sort of like theories on what happened to Natalee, because I'm sure there are more theories and more interesting facts that we have not covered in this episode, and we are definitely looking to hear from you guys. And as always, just stay safe and Peace out.